baby. Go, sexy, show me some.
Taking it as Bergeron, nicely able to step away. From Winifred, they score!
Here's a chance, Potter right in, and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1, Pasternak moving in with Marchand, get it to it, score!
Into the zone, Hoyle dances in, backhand, score!
Lindholm, right wing corner, Pasternak is there, he scores! David Pasternak wins it for Boston!
Oh, baby. Go, sexy, show me some.
Taking it as Bergeron, nicely able to step away. From Winifred, they score!
Here's a chance, Potter right in, and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1, Pasternak moving in with Marchand, get it to it, score!
Into the zone, Hoyle dances in, backhand, score!
Lindholm, right wing corner, Pasternak is there, he scores! David Pasternak wins it for Boston!
Welcome in, everyone, to Bruins Tape to
Sexy,
Tape.
show me some.
Uh-oh. What happened?
There we go. That's just me.
Okay, folks, we're trying something new, and with new experiments, there are trials and errors. We'll get it right, but welcome in to Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host tonight, Maria from Watertown. We are recording tonight's episode on Tuesday, October 1st. I want to welcome in my co-host and friend, Caroline with a K. Welcome in.
Hey, Maria. I'm very excited and interested in tonight's podcast. I've been raring to go for a good little over 24 hours, 36 hours.
I
So.
think there's going to be a very spirited discussion, even if it's just you and I think there'll be a lot of emotion and opinion. We are trying something new also tonight, and along with the new intro, we are doing a bit of a live stream tonight. So we've asked friends to join us and weigh in on probably the topic of the day, which is the ongoing soap opera
Oh my
as
God.
the goalie turns. But before we get started, we do have a little bit of table setting to do because there is some relative
there's
hockey
Other news.
Yeah, there is hockey news, folks, as we're getting down to the wire to the start of the season for the Boston Bruins. Opening night is October 8th against the Florida Panthers. With that, the Bruins made some recent roster cuts that raised some eyebrows, I think. They also named their opening day starter, and I have a bit of a take on that as well. We'll do a quick stroll around the rink with some unfortunate injuries that have been suffered by some key players on other teams during the preseason.
Mhm.
But with that being said, let's start with the Bruins' latest roster cuts.
Yes.
Now,
Big
notably, these cuts were made on September 29th, which was
Sunday.
Sunday. And notably cut, Mark McLaughlin was placed on waivers.
Yep.
With the hope that he would clear waivers and they could
He did.
assign him to Providence.
Mhm.
There's a handful of names on here, but the most notable names that raised some eyebrows, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, are Fabian Lysell, Georgi Merkulov, and maybe John Farinacci to some degree. So I think the Fabian Lysell is the one that I think has really, I don't want to say ruffled some feathers.
I think that's an apt.
Is that an
Yeah,
okay thing
for
to
some
say?
folks. Yeah, I think that's I think there are folks out there who have surprisingly strong opinions about the fact that he was sent down. I'm a little surprised, but then again, I'm not on Twitter, so I don't see those opinions.
Well, I think it was more the opinion of it seemed a bit too early
Yep.
to cut him and maybe not have provided an ample opportunity for a bigger sample size. Now, my take on that is knowing that you're now going into the start of the season without Jeremy Swayman.
Mm-hmm.
You have some questions with your goaltending as it currently stands.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to get down to the business of putting players or getting players on the ice who have the potential to win some games early on because they have
Mm-hmm.
a brutal schedule coming
Yeah.
up. And you've got to see what you have with potentially proven NHL players where you don't know potentially what you're going to get right now for goaltending. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the stakes are high because there's already too much uncertainty going into next week. So you kind of want to limit your, those things that are happening. But this is also the Boston Bruins, an original six team that has had almost 2 decades of far above average play and expectations of success, not just during the regular season, but going into the postseason. This isn't Anaheim where you can have good talent and good skills and make the team. You have to be the absolute best. And I understand why some folks are saying, oh, you should have given him to the end of the week or whatever. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Monty's comments, I think he said it, or at least it was implied in other places, that he wants to really start to have the team that's going to be playing start playing and develop that chemistry and that bond because of there's been a lot of criticism, more so even last year than the year prior, where he was maybe mixing things up a little too much. And so, thanks, Grant. They're an easy target. Anytime's always catching the strays for our listeners. And
somebody has to.
Someone has to, right? But anyways, there was that criticism that they weren't gelling in the beginning and there wasn't the chemistry. And so perhaps this is Monty's way of remedying that, which I think is a great idea. And I fully support. And you want to get the rest of the guys who are going to be there up to speed. And I think maybe this is me being a little bit harsh on the kid, but this is your third year. This is a high pressure moment. That's literally what the playoffs are, right? You have to be able to perform in the most important games of your life. And unfortunately, he just didn't have it. Maybe if the roster was a little bit different, the current roster, if there was a little bit more space, I don't think that it's explicitly a numbers game, although I'm sure that's also playing a part in it, just what are the spots that we have. But he was underwhelming for a third year first round draft pick when last year you had Matt Patras, who essentially came out of nowhere and just blew up. So perhaps my expectation is aligned with what we saw with Matty Patra. And I completely agree with the comments by the captain. You have to be better than just good.
Yeah. That was a message that was sent. That was a direct message that was sent to not just Fabian Lysell, but perhaps some of the other younger players that were, potentially vying for a spot.
Yeah.
Nothing is handed to you. And comments like that coming from Brad Marchand should hold a ton of weight, because this is a guy who, when he first came up, was basically going to be, everyone thought he was going to be a fourth line player. And in relative short order, he bumped himself up.
Right.
And didn't give the coaches any reason to send him back down to Providence.
Yeah.
And that's the difference for me.
Yeah. Well, we've got a little caller in. We've got Mary Beth waiting to hop in, and I would love to hear from her real quick about what she thinks about the guys who got sent down. So, hey, Mary Beth, welcome back.
Hi, guys.
Thank you.
I always love chatting about the prospects. I love watching these guys come up and see what they're doing. So it's always fun. Always fun to chat with the two of you as well. So thanks for having me on. I crack up at all of the doom and gloom and the internets, because they have a lot to say about the choices that have been made.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that really became clear to me during these preseason games is when you look at someone like Matt Patra, he is a phenom. He is unusual. He is way ahead of where you would see the development of someone of his age. The fact that it was a big deal that he even put on weight over the summer, which is not something you're normally looking from your NHL veterans.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the fact that he was doing that, growing up, maturing, we're seeing that is unusual. Now, I was hoping to see a lot more from Lysell. I saw a little bit here and there. You see some, what I consider flashes of greatness.
But
when you're looking at someone like that, he's not, we talked, I think it was, we might have talked about it last week when he we're talking about, they get this kind of 3-year window, but I forgot how young Fabian is. He is actually, when we're looking at a 3-year time horizon for him, he's actually still on the young side. When I'm starting to think about a 3-year development for players, I'm thinking of them more that they have a little bit, maybe some NCAA. Maybe they've gone a little bit longer with their juniors, major juniors, that kind of a thing. He kind of came right in. Patra did the same thing. So we look at that. Oh, well, look at what Matt did. Everybody should be right in there. No, nobody should probably be in the NHL at the age of Matt Patra. Now, he should be. We look at people like Connor Bedard. We're looking at some of these newer guys coming up. 1 or 2 of them can do it.
Yeah.
But as a rule, they don't have the maturity. They don't have the physical form, and they're not ready to do it. So these guys were all fighting for a job. And I think that they were given a pretty fair shot. For the first few games, this line's here, that line's there. And I think that's all as it goes. But they started to bring in some veterans. They were starting to play against some veterans. They weren't just playing against the AHL teams from the opponents. So they were given that shot. And I think that now they can still come back up. They weren't moved to the AHL. They're not moved to the Providence Bruins, never to be heard from again. Now, some of them will never be heard from again.
Unfortunately, yeah. Meredith, you make a really interesting point that I didn't really actually think about. Matt Patra, I mean, he came from the OHL, so that was at least something. I don't know where Lysell necessarily came from, but like you said, he is still on the younger side, but I think that's one of the things that NCAA hockey provides these young players is kind of a safe place to grow and develop and physically mature, mentally, emotionally mature without people saying, well, why were you there till you were 22, right? There's no question. Oh no, I wanted to be there because I'm getting my education, because I have this connection. Like, there's a multitude of reasons why a player can say, no, I want to do the 4 years there. And they never have to admit if maybe the real truth is they needed more time to grow and develop and gain weight, and they've gotten feedback and they want to keep working because it's kind of a safer place for them to do like a soft launch, and then they can go into the AHL, and then they still have, the 3 years, because we're still expecting 3 years, but it's a huge difference when you're talking about someone who's 25 versus someone who's 20 or 21 in all of those aspects. And so in spite of the fact that NCAA players are in the minority, I wouldn't be surprised if those players are maybe in a better place in all those aspects. But are you disappointed in anyone in particular besides Lysell that you had mentioned a few guys that you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys who I didn't think were ready for the big show yet, as it were. I think we saw some really nice stuff coming up with some of these guys. Farinacci, we know I love. Saw some really nice stuff from him in some preseason games. Some really good face-off stuff, which we need. He's not ready, but some of these guys we're going to see again through the season. Some of these guys, I mean, they're 2A. So look at Mason Lohrei. Lohrei, now he's 2 years older than Lysell.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at his development, he sort of came in. Yeah, he came in a little bit here and there, and he found his spot. But I think if we would have looked at him a year ago, we would have said, oh, potential there, but maybe not ready yet. And quite frankly, we saw quite a few games in the regular season where he was not ready.
No, he was there because we needed a warm body.
And that's it. But came up, played a little bit, went back to the HL, came up, played a little bit. And then we've been seeing some real leadership from him at camps and in the preseason. I mean, he was out there quarterbacking the power play. He was out there taking Marshy's role at the very first preseason game. He's out there collecting the pucks, being out in the goal, just really the leader on the ice for that. So we're seeing him come into it. But again, he's got a couple more years on the cell and a couple more years on most of those guys. Most of them are, late teens, 20, 21, maybe 22-ish. So we've got, I think, a few more years on them. I would love to see all of them get their shot and be able to do a little bit more. But we also know that Monty changes lines too much, and people need to get their groove going. Yeah. And I think particularly, and I know you're going to get to it, the goaltending situation. But we've got to work on what we've got up front. And let those guys gel, because we've got to make up for the back end a little bit, at least at the beginning of the season. So I think disappointed isn't the right word. I was surprised at the giant sweep. I thought a few more would get a little bit more time. But if we look at the lineup for tonight, we're getting close to a regular season lineup. And so there's not the room.
The Rangers game was me saying, I'm good.
I'm
I've
good.
seen what I need to see.
No, I felt the same way after that preseason game. I said I was good with that. And you bring up Mary Beth the lineup for tonight's game, and it does look pretty close, relatively close to an NHL lineup. And we're going to see the debut of Brad Marchand, which I'm very interested to see how he looks out on the ice after 5,000 surgeries in a short period of time. And Elias Lindholm is going to make his debut tonight. So it stands to reason that we have David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha back in the lineup again. We've got Charlie Coyle in there, Frederick, Brazeau, Beecher, Geeky, Tyler Johnson, Kastelik. I'm curious on.
I'm loving this lineup. I'm so excited to see this roster play.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And, defensemen, not too shabby that are playing tonight. Carlo, Hampus Lindholm, Mason Lohrei, McAvoy, Jordan Osterley, Andrew Peak, and Nikita Zadorov. So, I'm
great.
This should be an interesting game to watch, and it should be pretty close to, quality real hockey, so to speak.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. So who would we have kept up and who would we have kept out? If we want to start, this to me is the time you play around the lines. You do a little, I think, all the way through October. By the time you get to Thanksgiving, we all know I do not care for switching the lines as much.
I know you don't.
But I also think this is the time you start to gel, you start to figure it out, and you get that opportunity to play around. So who of that big sweep, who would we have kept up and who would we have kept out? And I don't think that you could have.
Now, this will be interesting because the two goalies are Bussy and DiPietro. Put up or shut up time for both of these guys, as far as I'm concerned. You need one of these two needs to show that they can back up.
Yeah, and I think Bussy, we've seen enough from him to sort of know where he is. I think again, he's young, but he's not that young. For goalies, they develop more a little bit later. He's a year older than Swayman, though, so we should be seeing something from him. DiPietro, I've got my thoughts on him, and I just think he hasn't had enough time yet. So we'll have to see how it goes. So I think it's a good opportunity.
I'm not going to lie, Bussy scares me. If he doesn't get his rebound control.
It's like all of these young guys. I don't know. Maybe there's something in the water because that all of these guys to have underperformed and again, preseason doesn't mean anything, right? I'm pretty sure the year that the Bruins broke the win record, they were terrible in that preseason, just absolutely awful. But these guys were so underwhelming, all of them, and the fact that Bussy we'd seen before, and he had done a great job. I think he played maybe one game because injuries or whatever. And for DiPietro, I think for him, it's probably just too much of a stretch, too much of a leap, because I believe he spent most of last year, he's way down in the ECHL. So, that's an even bigger leap. We've talked about this so many times about how the skills required to leap up each level in professional hockey is just insane. But we've got some interesting other comments that folks are throwing in that are really good. Grant coming in hot with the hot takes. If we're looking to keep guys out of the lineup, they just need to sign with Gross.
I love that. But I put a star.
Yes, I'm like, we need to make sure
we star for that comment because it's on point.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And we'll get to that very soon because also we've got preseason hockey to check out. But Maria, you're driving this bus.
I am driving this bus, and we're going to get to the big elephant in the room. I just wanted to do just a quicker, segment around the rink in that there have been already some pretty significant injuries that have occurred, and the Montreal Canadiens have sustained two relative big hits. They have the biggest one is likely Patrick Laine, who is going to be out about 2 to 3 months because of a left knee sprain. And then add insult to injury, the number 5 pick in the 2023 draft is a defenseman for the Canadiens named David Reinbacher, who's going to be out 5 or 6 months because of a left knee injury. And I think he underwent surgery. Drew Doughty is also going to be out a period of time with another joint-related injury, which has prompted conversation around, you know, the preseason games. Are these guys going too hard? Should they be going this hard? Or, you know, in some cases, you know, are guys trying to make names for themselves by going after someone of significance in the league? So, or is it just dumb shit luck?
Yeah.
That these things are happening.
Obviously, it's the Canadiens, so it couldn't have happened to a better team. But for the individuals, that's terrible, right? Especially
we don't wish injury on anybody, right?
No, the individuals, no. This obviously you know how you feel about Freddie.
He might be singing my tune at some point this season. So talk to me in a couple of months, because I might be on that trade Freddie train.
Right.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? As an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you like? Or was that lost in childhood? For me, I always have had a want of learning how to ice skate. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN.
TD, Tutty, in for 6. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. When life as a Pats fan isn't as fun anymore, placing small bets help to keep the game days interesting. Ready to do a touchdown dance on your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
So, but I mean, Patrick Laine, you feel for the guy, right?
He's been
pretty
through
awful personal life.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's Mo. He's had some substance abuse issues. He was on Columbus, I believe, you know, he knew Johnny Hockey, obviously that personal issue, struggle there, and then to go up and then have your knee blown out and he's effectively out for the rest of the calendar year is terrible. And whether or not it was on purpose, if it was a dirty hit, I don't think it was. I watched it a few times. It just seemed like there was a bit of traffic, a little bit of shuffling, and just some really bad knee on knee situation. But regardless, it's awful to see. That can end a career. So,
all right. So let's get to the topic that I know everyone is likely ready to just weigh in on, explode, vent, pick a side. I don't know if anyone who's watching this on YouTube can see my little photographs that I have taped over some of my Bruins stuff. I have a lovely picture of Cam Neely and a lovely picture of Don Sweeney.
Boo.
I have decided I am on team management in this instance until I hear otherwise. And only because this is nothing against the player. I would love nothing better than to see Jeremy Swayman wearing a Boston Bruins sweater for the next 8 years. But kiddo, let me give you a piece of advice. Your agent is pulling some slimy shit, in my view. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. This wouldn't be the first time, but I don't like what is transpired here. Now, I said this a few weeks ago. I was getting nervous. Now it's gut-wrenching time, folks, because this shit just got real, and now it's getting a little bit contentious and nasty.
We are a house divided. Uh-oh.
We definitely are.
Now, let me be clear. Let me be clear. I am not pro Lewis Gross. Okay. You've all heard me talk about how what he did with Nylander was terrible, that Nylander had the worst year of his career that year because there is nothing equal to NHL play and these preseason games to get you back up with your timing, right? Like we've heard all these things. But apparently now even Grant has left me in the Discord. We've had a really awesome debate yesterday. Grant's saying, I think most of us are team management at this point. We had a fantastic Discord conversation. Like we actually had great Discord, and I strongly recommend anyone who's listening to join in. You don't have to be watching nearly as much as we do. You don't have to know everything about hockey to participate in the conversation we have. Quite frankly, I get half my news from the folks in the Discord because everybody's got their eyes on all different things at all times. But I will tell you this, the reason why I will never be team management, at least with this particular team management. And I think it's comparable to some of your past experiences, Maria.
I know, but aren't you the one who tells me all the time to trust the process?
I do the process, not Cam Neely. Not Cam Neely. I've never said trust Cam Neely. Okay. And don't get me wrong, right? So we've got some other great comments popping up. If the Bruins had budgeted, but Swayman hasn't, that seems shiesty. It's Adrian. The parents are fighting. Yes. No, we're not fighting. You have great conversation and you respect and see all sides, because this is not a black and white issue. This has so many shades of gray. Not a single one of us knows what is happening. Not a single one of us knows the truth. We've all talked about this for weeks, months at this point. Oh, well, Whitney said this, Ty said this, Biz said that. Do we know the truth? No. And I will argue that even the comments that were made by Cam Neely yesterday, what was it? September 30th at 11 a.m. Oh, he's got 64 million reasons to play. Does he? Because then fast forward to, I don't know, was it like 7 o'clock at night? Statement on the player's agent's Instagram, not his personal Instagram, but the agency's Instagram, saying, this is the first we've heard of it. I will tell you why I will never trust Cam Neely. Ever. I will tell you why. 2 reasons. 3 reasons. Bruce Cassidy, and I remember the kid's name, but the Mitchell fiasco. 3 reasons why I don't trust Cam Neely, because in all 3 instances, he very publicly threw someone under the bus. He did that with, I mean, the saying we were talking to Krug when he wasn't talking to Krug. With Cassidy, he sent Sweeney to do his dirty business, and it's like, have some respect for the coach who took you that far and worked with you for 4 years.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Because it's not the job of the president of the Boston Bruins to make those communications. Does he have say in them? Okay. I'll grant you that. Okay. And I too have seen the Bruins pull some shady shit in the past. But there's a common theme here when we talk about contentious player negotiations. Gross was Torrey Krug's agent.
Oh, you were kidding. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
You are serious?
It's my understanding that he was Torrey Krug's agent as well. He's William Nylander's agent, and that's been well documented now, because there's been stuff that's bubbled to the surface regarding Nylander's negotiations with the Maple Leafs, where Nylander picked up the phone and called Kyle Dubas. Gross tried to screw Johnny Gaudreau, God rest his soul. And Johnny Gaudreau was basically like, I'm tired of this shit. I want a deal. Get it done. I want to play, which is why the Calgary Flames had Johnny Gaudreau on a very sweet deal. So you have your 3, and that for me is my 3. Here's the other thing. This agent had said that he wasn't going to negotiate this in the media. Who would have reached out to Ryan Whitney?
But we don't know, Maria. We don't know.
Opinion. It just seems to be all flowing from the same source.
Now, keep in mind, though, 2 things can be very true, right? Like, yes, Mary Beth is correct. I also just found an article on The Athletic about the time when Torrey Krug was on his way out. So mind literally blown. Oh my God! How is this agent still in business?
I did a little checking.
You did a great job with your homework.
I did a little homework,
but I just personally, and I owned up to this in our conversation in the Discord, that I had a particular visceral reaction to watching Cam Neely, because I don't think he isn't as politically suave as Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney likes to go in, and he is a very, I'm going to stay above the fray political approach.
He's a wordsmith, right? He can wordsmith quite well.
Cam Neely may come across as looking like he's this bull in a china shop, and he certainly played that way, right? But I think he plays a much more aggressive, no holds barred, form of politics in the workplace, so to speak. And I personally don't care for that, because I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. Let's not play games. Just say what you want to say. Then if you want to be direct, don't play around and say, oh, he's got 64 million. Just say it then. Stop negotiating in public. I think that's in poor taste. And I understand, get it. Look, I get why he did it.
Choice.
The
organization has been getting trashed.
He had to push.
Trashed.
And, we also last night came up with some fantastic conspiracy theory. So we're making tinfoil hats tomorrow as a group craft. Was he saying was he just saying like, yeah, this was the number without saying it and putting it out there and forcing his camp to do something? Was he trying to get a reaction to get the gears moving again? Was he signaling to him, maybe he's not actually spoken with Jeremy? Because as far as I've understood the Willie Nylander situation, Nylander was completely not involved whatsoever. It was you call me when the deal is done. And maybe it was I think Adrian had said it and I kind of coined it as a proof of life. Like, blink if you're hearing me, Jeremy, about this offer, because this is what we want to put out there. And I don't think you got it right. There's so many different ways that we could slice and look at this situation. But I think until both sides are telling the same story at the same time, I can't trust anything anymore. Even after some of my most
I don't trust anything that comes out of Lou Gross's.
Oh, no, I don't mean him. I don't mean him.
Right. Yeah.
No. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Jeremy Swayman and Don Sweeney. That's
well,
what I'm talking about.
I think you said something very interesting in where you don't trust Cam because he throws people under the bus. And he has, but I think the person he was throwing under the bus yesterday was Larry Gross.
Yeah.
And I think Larry Gross deserves to be thrown under a bunch
I
of buses.
agree with you 100%.
I hope
think
so.
he's doing his client a disservice.
I hope so.
There's being a very critical and thought-provoking, and let me protect my client's interest. And then there's being not forthright in how you're negotiating.
Let's be honest. How does Larry get paid?
Lewis. Yeah, commission percent.
How does Lewis get paid? Lewis gets paid when they make more money. It's in his interest to do it. I think I was pitchforking the wrong guy, sorry. But I think Lewis Gross gets paid when they get paid more, and great. And I think I'm always on the side of the players.
I am too.
Players
get your cash, yes.
But I also think that in a business model, which professional sports are, you have to say, hey, how much money do we have? How do we parse it out? And not that I expect everyone to take a hometown discount, because they shouldn't. But I also think there's only so much money we have left. We all know what the number is. Yeah. We all know how much money we have left.
But we don't know that it's 10 million. That's the number.
We don't know what they're asking.
It's not that I don't believe it, right? Like, sure, someone could ask it, but like, why should I believe this number that's floating around? Why? No one has provided me any evidence that I find legitimate when, to your point, you can do the math. You're not blind. You know how much money is left, right? So like, it doesn't, that alone doesn't compute. And I know in, again, the Skate Pod, we listen to them, mutual friends of the pod. And they were talking about in their episode yesterday about like, what could he possibly want? Like, you want to take away someone else's livelihood so that way, you can free up for another million. I find that difficult to believe. But again, that's making the assumption that this $10 million number is a real number. And again, it's not that I don't think it could be real, but why is everyone so hell-bent on believing that that's what he asked for?
Well, I don't think it even matters what he's asking for. I think the $64 million reasons tells us what the Bruins are offering. And I think that from anyone you're going to listen to, any NHL insider is going to say, hey, we're on the side of the player, but we also know how much money is left in the Bruins coffers. Mm-hmm. And I don't know anybody who doesn't think 8x8 isn't reasonable.
Sure.
Now, I get he wants to reset the market. And quite frankly, I would say for a guy who hasn't done what he hasn't done a full season as the number one goalie. He's been 1A, 1B, has done a great job, 5th goalie in league. He deserves us to back up a truck. But I think
100%.
8x8 for where he is backing up the truck.
But the thing is, we don't know what the actual offer is. We don't know. Maybe that's where he's sitting, right? The reports were that the $64 million wink wink was brand new information. Oh, look, we've got Adrian who's going to come in because he's apparently got words to say.
I have
Adrian.
thoughts. You have thoughts.
You have thoughts. You want
Thank
to
you
say
for
the word.
joining us, Adrian.
Yeah,
you know,
I can know.
Listen, somewhere in the middle is the truth in this. My issue with this whole situation, and again, I'll say it again, I would love nothing better than to see Jeremy Swayman become the next Bruins franchise goalie. Okay? But it needs to be done at a fair market rate. Don't tell me that you want to set the standard and the comp when you haven't yet played a full season.
Sure.
If you're let's just say for the sake of argument, that there's an $8 million offer on the table from the Boston Bruins for 8 years. You're telling me that's not enough for someone who's only 26 years old, who hasn't yet played a full season, who hasn't won a Vezina, who hasn't, brought the team to the Stanley Cup level that we need. And again, I understand the other argument, no fault of his own. It's a 2-goalie system, but you need to factor that in when you're looking at your ask. And you also need to know your audience. The Boston Bruins don't give a crap about what someone else sets as a market rate for a forward, a defenseman, or a goalie. Now, they might be willing to go that extra mile for a defenseman or a forward, but they have their internal comp that they have worked with for years and years and years. And now here comes Jeremy Swayman and makes statements on podcasts about, I understand the cap. I understand where the cap is going. I'm taking business classes. He doesn't want to do anything that's potentially detrimental to his goalie union, for lack of a better word. But if you want to play in this organization, you got to give on something.
But what if they've always been underpaid? He's going to be the one who sets the base for RFAs, and Shesterkin could be the one to set the base for UFAs. But Adrian, you wanted to speak.
You made both of you made two very good points. Maria,
we know.
Here's my take on it. You need to decide which side of your mouth you're talking out of. If you are going in there to say, this isn't about me, this is about goalies everywhere, and I am the point man, and I'm bringing justice to all of them, then you need to stop talking about being sad about arbitration. And your agent needs to stop talking about what's fair for you.
Yeah, the messaging is terrible.
He talks these big things about, and maybe goalies are underpaid. We all saw the hockey guy thing, and the guy makes some good points. It's fair.
Yeah. And we'll post that video.
I am leading the charge here so that we all get paid what we're worth. And then everything you do and say needs to be about that. And your reaction to whatever the Bruins do needs to also be about that. But you can't run back to, I'm trying to reset the market because it's really not fair for anybody. But when the Bruins make you an offer, you go, oh, but my feelings are hurt. You shouldn't bring that up in a thing. And, and when you're on a podcast, be like, oh, but arbitration kind of hurt my feelings last year. I'm going to bring that up a lot. Which is it? Because it's one or the other, but not both. Now, the thing about Neely is that whatever you want to say about it, whatever he said that number, he can't take it back. Right?
Oh no, he's screwed.
And the camera didn't immediately whip pan to Charlie Jacobs spit taking and going, what? Right? So
we
everybody
didn't discuss that.
Like cut the mic. Nobody tackled Neely like to get him, weaned over.
And it was rehearsed. It was rehearsed.
Of course, the whole thing probably was, but what that says is that everybody in the organization knew that number. So if everybody in the organization,
he rehearsed it. I don't
Do
know.
you really think that was rehearsed? He was answering a direct question from Kevin Paul DuPont. And his first reaction, I thought, was very kind of, I was a little taken aback when the question was posed to Don Sweeney about, were you surprised by what the ask was? And Cam didn't even give Don an opportunity to respond. And he immediately said, I was surprised. And it sounded like he was a little taken aback.
Yeah.
No. I think that was not the first time that he tried that 64 million reasons line.
And it's fine that he did. I thought it was a master stroke because the way the fan base has been looking at this is it's either Charlie's cheap or Sweeney's incompetent. And the guy that stood in between them and let both of them off the hook with one line.
He's taken the bullet for them.
And then immediately swung fandom like the Eye of Sauron back to Swayman's camp. It was genius. And I have absolutely no problem with how he handled it because you're right. We don't know who's leaking. We don't know who's calling wit and giving weird numbers. But the fact of the matter is that somebody's doing it, and the team can only take so much. Opening night's coming. The fandom's out for blood. They want him signed. And so, and if they are really at a stalemate, somebody needed to punch first.
Yeah.
So why not let it be Neely? He's good at it.
He's
lots of videos of him doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think if anyone's going to play, if we want to call him the bad guy in Bruins management, he's the guy, right? Charlie's going to be the meek, nice guy who actually holds the purse strings. And Don's the peacemaker, political, and Cam will just be like, well, what the hell is going on here, you idiots?
Yeah.
And let's not forget too, Charlie he chimed in on it, whether he was asked a direct question during that media day, I can't remember, but he felt the need to defend the organization, saying, that they have been spending to the cap for quite a few years now. That wasn't always the case. But they, the Charlie has given Cam and Don, it seems like, free reign, spend to the cap, do what you need to do to put a winning team. But Charlie is also a businessman, as is Don and as is Cam. Now, even if you wanted to give Jeremy Swayman all that you had available, then you have nothing left for a rainy day. Yeah. What if someone gets hurt? What if there's a need? You need to tweak something at the trade deadline to make your team more viable. So I would like to ask Mr. Gross and Jeremy Swayman, who do you want to punch from this team to potentially open up an extra $1.5 million to put in your pocket?
Yeah. And it is, what was the point I was going to make? There was a good point you made that just wiped my brain to the point I was going to make. I don't think that it necessarily needs to be Swayman to be the guy to reset the goalie market. I don't think that's his responsibility as a guy that's never run a full season. I don't know why he needs to be that guy. There are other people that can be that guy. I think it's a line that's been floated by his agent in advance of this Amazon series that's coming out, where he's one of the goalies featured. And now his agent's like, this kid's going to be one of the faces of the NHL, and you should be paid commensurate with that.
Who's Igor Shesterkin's agent? I'm just curious because I have a funny feeling.
You're right.
That they're looking at what Shesterkin is likely going to receive from the New York Rangers, and I've seen some consistency in the fact that the Rangers are going to be potentially willing to pay him $11 or $12 million. Now, if that's what Swayman and Gross are using as their comp, are you crazy? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Swayman could get there, but that's a lot. Sure. That's a lot to put on someone without a bridge deal first. And both McAvoy and Pasternak had bridge deals before they got their big paydays. Swayman wants to skip it off a 50% workload, a subpar second half, and 7 stellar playoff wins, where he was beaten the same side by the same team in elimination games. You know, not that I want to be mean, but it's sort of like, you know, 8x8 sounds awesome. Over under, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, that's fine. And the reason I absolutely don't trust Gross is that if that comes out and it's the first time you've allegedly heard it and they've never been that high, you get pissy about it, say you're going to take a couple days. You don't pick up the phone and go, sold. Jeremy will be there tomorrow.
Right.
Like, no, I don't buy any of this. I don't buy any of it all.
Someone's lying more than the other.
Yeah, and who's got a history of it? Who's got a history of acting as a stopgap between him and his clients, potentially to the detriment of their clients? Right?
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like we're trashing this agent who we haven't talked to directly. You know, Andrew Raycroft was on WEEI earlier today, and was saying that this agent has a good reputation across the league. So maybe these 3, but it's just ironic to me that 3 major players, right?
Yeah.
3 major players in the NHL have, presumably had to make their own deals.
Yeah.
So what do they need this guy for?
The news of him also being Krug's agent.
That's mind blowing.
Makes me like what Cam did even more, because I am I'm sure Cam's like, fuck this guy. We're not doing this again. If we lost Krug because a message didn't get to him, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Well, it's almost game time.
I wonder if he had anything to do with the Bruins pulling an offer that had been made to Torrey Krug. So again, these are the things, we'll never have the answers to unless someone writes a tell-all book. Here's hoping that this, if it's now in the public's eye, that it will at least bring these parties into a room together, because I think both sides are kind of taking hits, and I worry about the hit on the player and how the fan base may or may not react to the player if and when a deal gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so I've got 2 questions as it relates. Well, a couple of thoughts on it. I eventually some deal's going to get made. There's all the online chat of, he's going to be traded and he wants to be traded and let's get rid of it. That's not happening.
I don't think so.
No
one's going to take a goalie right now if he's looking for a ton of money.
Nobody has the money and nobody wants
Not only do they not have the money, they don't want to give
nobody
up
wants
assets.
They're like, we don't want this headache either.
Yeah. This is a pain in the ass.
We want to deal with this guy.
Let's sort it out, and then we'll come and look.
That's the stuff that I worry about.
For that, there's something to be said for that.
Well, and I think that's part of it. So, but now let's just wait. Some deal will get made at some point, not soon enough for any of us to be happy.
No.
But what happens now in the room?
Right.
Is this going to be awkward? Now, we've been talking about this for some number of months.
Right.
Whereas everybody understands it's business. At what point does it become a little bit more than just business? At what point do they say, for the love of Pete, why didn't you just sign at whatever? Does it become that? Or do they literally all just move on? Is this between players? Is this going to be a problem with management? I would posit that Jeremy Swayman is already having a problem with management based on the fact
I
that
think
we're
he's
still
hurting
talking
his
about
relationship
arbitration from over a year ago.
Yeah.
With the players, it's different. That's going to be something that Brad Marchand is going to need to likely address, talk about, not only with the media, but likely with the players in the room to get them to understand, listen, we got a job to do here. That's business. He'll be ready when he comes back. We'll welcome him back in when he comes back. But right now, this is us.
Yep.
There was
Yep.
one article I saw in The Athletic where a player on background said that person does not believe it will be an issue unless they start the season and they're losing games, and Swayman's not showing signs of coming back.
Well, and that's the other question, Adrian, that I have is
that would
how
cost
long does this go on, and how far does that put him behind A, in catching up with where the team is, and B, how much catch up do we have to do then?
Yeah. I mean, if he comes back and immediately starts winning, no one's going to care. This will be over in a month, right? But the question becomes, he puts more pressure on himself to then be worth whatever he ends up signing for. And the fans will be all over him any soft goal he lets in.
Oh yeah.
Because it's gonna happen. Well, I can tell you on one local sports talk radio show that I won't mention, but it was rumored that Cam Neely was going to be on this show, and it turned out to be just a rumor because Cam won't set foot in their studio. I don't believe ever again after the last time he was there and the way he was treated. But the narrative of, Swayman being, entitled, elitist, kind of sensitive, as they put it, is already started here locally. Whether it gains any traction, that's my concern, because Tuukka was a punching bag for years here, and I would hate to see the same thing happen to Jeremy Swayman.
Yeah, this seems like it's unfortunate that we got here, and it seems like an unforced error. But but I thought somebody I was reading today, 8x8 puts him within, I think, the top 5 paid goalies.
Yes, he would be one of the top 5 goalies in the league with that paycheck.
It's wild to him that someone in his camp's like not good enough. That seems, really outlandish to me.
Yeah.
If we were still high 6, low 7s, I'd be like, all right, you're going to need to give a little bit, Bruins.
I mean, I was expecting 7 as the generous offer, but anyways, it is game time.
We'll see. It's game time.
We do
for sure. Thank you all for everyone who
is there.
Jumped in live. This, as I expected, this was a spirited discussion, and Carolyn and I are still friends. We're still gonna co-host together.
I don't believe it. Somebody's lying.
It's fine. Of course. No, and this is why we encourage folks to come and join us in our Discord, because we can have these kinds of conversations and they're civil and it doesn't get personal. It's not like what you see on other forms of social media where we can talk about it and just understand, in these kinds of instances, it's a very complex situation and not a one of us knows what's going on, but we all have different experiences in our lives and, in our own workplace experiences that inform our interpretation of what we're seeing. And it's just interesting food for thought, right? So brief housekeeping. Don't forget, next week, we have a watch party happening. Yay, on YouTube. So, tune in and watch the game while we watch the game and be sad as we watch the Florida Panthers raise their banner in front of the Boston Bruins. Any final thoughts from our friends?
I was wondering if you guys wanted to do a informal poll of when do you think he will sign and what do you think it'll be? Like, do you think they wrap this up this week to just get it out of the news, or do you think it'll take another week or so?
I don't know. Some folks I've heard think it's going to push him to agree. Other folks are saying it's going to piss him off. Swayman's camp.
I'm going to say it's either the end of this week or it's going to be December 1st.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be much in the middle.
Really?
I agree.
Bold. That's bold. I think
it's either this pushed it over the edge or he's going to hold out. And I think he will sign in the end because he wants a job.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to not play. Even if he were to sign the end of this week, he's not starting in Florida.
No,
He
no,
hasn't-
no.
No, they've already
wanna
named
be-
Jonas
he
as
may
they've
wanna
made-
sign
the
for the
starter.
start of the
No,
season.
that's a done deal. They've already named Jonas as the starter. You know, unfortunately, I'm with Mary Beth. I think given what's occurred in the last 48 hours, I have a funny feeling this is going to go to very close to December 1st.
Wow.
You not even like either this week or December 1st. You think it's going to go all the way?
I think it's going to go very close to his history with this agent shows that it gets very close to that 12-1 window. So
yeah.
Unless Jeremy goes around him. I mean, I wonder what it's going to be like when he watches opening night and it's his team and he's not there. He's not on the road with them. He's not there. I wonder.
I hope he's home crying.
right.
Maybe.
The team
You
that
hope
knocked
he's
you out of the playoff. Oh, and by
Yes.
the way, you played your ass off.
Yeah.
Right?
Shaz thinks it'll go to October 15th when he misses his first paycheck, which is true. That's always a motivator.
she's got honestly a valid point, you know.
Yeah.
Now it's very, different than football players because there's no guaranteed money, hopefully
Right.
he's got a little bit of money in the bank from his prior contracts. But yes, when you start missing potentially big paychecks and you do the math, maybe that's incentive enough to say, okay, I need to get back to work like now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
But anyways,
Okay.
thanks
This
as
has been
always.
great. Thank you all for
Yes.
joining. Thank you for your content and your comments and your input. It's been fun.
Yeah. We hope to see everybody soon and to follow and like us on all your social media platforms and follow us on YouTube if you don't already watch us on there. But again, as always, go Bees.
Go Bruins.
Please.
Yay.